As the NFL free agency week is coming to a close, we get to highlight who made the big splashes and who is unprepared as this offseason begins. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you are new to the Gridiron Podcast. All right, Mike. So, obviously, free agency opened up this week. Today, as the recording, is when everything kind of becomes official with the first day of the league. Now, we'll get into the NFC North a little later, but I want to get your top three teams, whether it's good signings or bad signings or kind of in the middle, where you see some of these teams in your top three.
On the spot. I actually have not. I have all the signings, but I have not been able to list them out like that. But I will definitely say in my top number one has to be the Tennessee Titans. They were so active at this deadline that they signed, I believe, 2 corners. Wan'Dale Robinson reunites with Brian Daboll on a huge contract and finally gets Cam Ward, a number 1 receiver, hopefully. And yeah, the Titans have to go uphill from there. They spent so much money. I believe it was over $280 million, I think. Something like that
Roughly,
in free agency. So they have to go uphill from there. That's got to be my number 1 team just because of how many moves they made and how many effective moves they made. They addressed a lot of positions. So it'll be super interesting to see what that team does this coming season with second year now in Cam Ward. I think an underrated, sneaky signing that I really is Isaiah Likely to the Giants. I really like that signing in particular just because he goes from hardball to hardball. And Isaiah Likely, when he was on the Ravens, was a very good tight end, being behind Mark Andrews, of course. And when Mark Andrews went down with injuries, Isaiah Likely was that guy to step up. And he's a big tight end. He's a good athletic tight end. I did like his time in Baltimore, and with the Giants, I see him being more active. So that's a sneaky signing that I really like. I think he'll be really good in New York, and yeah, I'm excited to see him there despite being in the NFC. But I think that's an exciting move for the Giants. And one move that I think isn't so good is what the Bengals did with signing Brian Cook and Boye Mafe. I think they overpaid for Mafe, and Brian Cook, I think, had the most missed tackles as a safety. So with the Bengals defense already being as the worst in the league last season, what are you doing? Why would you sign Brian Cook to top-tier safety money in a 3-year, $40 million contract? I don't really know, but we'll see what they do because they made some other additions. But that's one signing I don't like. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say, who you like and who you don't, because there was so much activity going on in free agency.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on the Bengals, in addition, losing Trey Hendrickson to the Ravens.
Yeah.
So I got to start with my number one. That's the Los Angeles Rams. They made some big moves, especially in their secondary. They signed Cam Curl to a 3-year, $36 million deal. They got Jalen Watson, 3-year, $51 million. And they also got Trent McDuffie. They traded for him and extended him as well for a 4-year, $124 million deal. The Rams are looking to get back to the Super Bowl. That is plain and simple. They beefed up their secondary, and this was a point of contact for the Rams as they were middle of the pack in terms of pass defense this year. And this definitely helps them a lot. My second one, go ahead.
I want to ask you, you mentioned the Rams, and I obviously kept note of them last episode. They spent, I think, $200 million just between those 3 players right there, and Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, and re-signing Cam Curl. Do you think that they may have went a little overboard with addressing their defense. I know they needed cornerbacks and they needed to keep that secondary, but should they have maybe gotten a linebacker because they've gotten destroyed in the linebacker position? Do you think it was a little much, or do you think that spending that much was necessary and getting a guy like Trent McDuffie?
I think kind of 50-50 because a guy like Trent McDuffie doesn't just fall to you that easily. So paying him that amount is reasonable because he is one of the top secondary players in the league and has been for the last couple of years.
Now the highest paid.
Yep. But in terms of the linebackers, I do know they have the option to restructure some contracts to free up some cap space. Obviously, Stafford is probably not going to play for the next 3 years. He's probably going to call it quits after the next two, just with his age. He's getting up there and how slow his body is moving at this point now.
Yeah.
So I do see them potentially restructuring his contract to free up some cap space, but they definitely need to address that linebacker issue before the end of free agency, if not the draft, because this is a pretty solid linebacker class this year. So we'll have to see what the Rams do, but I do feel like, especially for Jalen Watson and Cam Curl, I do believe that they overpaid them. I do believe on that aspect. But in terms of Trent McDuffie, I think that was a contract that if you're going to get him, you needed to pay him that sort of contract.
Yeah, they gave up their first round draft pick for him too. So on top of extending him, they also gave up draft capital. But that was the initial trade, was getting him for the first and then extending him too. But the Rams are definitely a threat coming into this year. I mentioned it last episode. They're a team to look out because, as you said, Stafford's right now coming to the end. So they're all in, and that they did this free agency.
Yeah, my second team is the Pittsburgh Steelers, as they addressed their running back issue with getting Rico Dowdle, as that was a person that was kind of on my list for the Lions. We'll get into the Lions later in the episode. But they also got Jamel Dean. And then they also traded for Michael Pittman. And I believe they also extended him as well. 3-year, $59 million. So now they have wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. So that is a big addition for the Pittsburgh Steelers and addressing their run game, as they had a wide receiver at running back last year for basically 85% of the season. And they get a guy like Rico Dowdle, who really had his comeback year last year. And they get him for 2-year, $12.2 million, and then Jamel Dean 3-year, $36 million. Now, Jamel Dean does kind of seem like an overpay, in my opinion, just by a little bit, because you're getting him for 3 years. I would have, if you're going to pay him $36 million, I would have extended or pushed it to 4 years to be able to get that cap space for essentially trying to build your other positions: linebacker, defensive lineman, safety. Those 3 positions for the Pittsburgh Steelers are kind of a must at this point. And getting Jamel Dean, I would have put it for 4 years.
I thought the number for Jamel is pretty good. I thought he was actually older than what he is, but he's actually only 29. And for $12 million a year for a corner, I think he's still pretty solid. I know his time with the Bucs, that defense was horrid, but I think he's still a pretty good corner. But the reason why I smile this whole time is because they're building something over there in Pittsburgh, but we have no idea who's throwing the football there. No idea. We don't know if Rodgers is coming back one more year. If he's not, they're screwed, because it looks like, we'll get into this later too, that Kyler Murray's going elsewhere. I don't know who else is really out there. Tua's already signed. Murray's going elsewhere. What are you going to do?
Justin Fields, bring him back to Pittsburgh.
You go Fields? Do you draft Simpson from Bama? I don't know. It's just, I liked what they did with Rico Dowdle, and Michael Pittman, but we don't know who's throwing them the football.
Right. Exactly. And my third team, this might actually surprise some people. It is the team that's building another dynasty, apparently, is the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the whole re signing of Travis Kelce to start with, that is absolutely absurd in terms of his contract. And it is just, I thought he was retiring after this year. And then he signs that sort of contract. And then on top of that, they get Kenneth Walker from the Seattle Seahawks, Super Bowl MVP for 3 year, $48 million, and Kyrus Tonga for 3 year, $21 million. Now, I say the Chiefs because they add a power runner, one of the best running backs in the league. He just won Super Bowl MVP, that being Kenneth Walker. And they addressed that issue because you have a player that we'll talk about a little later that left the Kansas City Chiefs who has been a little bit injury prone. And they haven't really had a solidified running back for the last 2 years. So they addressed that issue. And then they re signed Travis Kelce to, yes, it's an absurd number, but it's a 1 year contract. And they get rid of Jawan Taylor as well. So they risk the amount of penalties now. They get rid of that.
Yeah, I do secretly like the Tonga signing. I think he's a good run stopper. He may not give you a ton other than that, but he's still
Mm-hmm.
a good downhill guy to have. And yeah, as you said with the Kenneth Walker signing, good signing. They addressed the running back need that they've needed last season. They didn't have a run game. But it's interesting though because they still need a receiver, and I assume they're going to draft one with the draft capital they have, but they still don't have a number one guy. So it'll be interesting. Also, too, we mentioned it earlier, the Rams took their cornerbacks, so they also got to draft there. So it'll be interesting what they do with the replacements. Somehow, in some way, they do find good corners. They just don't re-sign them. But if they can draft another one, great. But it's pretty hard to find a good corner. So it'll be interesting if the Chiefs can rebuild this year. They'll make the playoffs. We'll see. But yeah, the Chiefs made some good signings. I do what they're doing over there.
One team that really surprised me was the 49ers getting Mike Evans because you sign him to a 3 year, $60.4 million deal. And I like what I saw on one TikTok where it's like you get an injury prone player for an injury prone team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that really surprised me because growing up, I always thought that Mike Evans was going to stay with Tampa Bay his entire career. And now he goes to San Francisco and signs a 3 year deal. And he's definitely up there in age, especially for a wide receiver. So that
Yeah, he's
definitely
definitely
surprised me.
yeah, he's definitely finishing his career with the 49ers. And I think obviously the 49ers came in and outbid the Buccaneers. I think the number's high, but at the same time, the 49ers are getting rid of Juwan Jennings probably. You know, they got Ricky Pearsall, but is he a true number one? As you said, the Niners are so always injury prone. Can Mike Evans stay healthy? That's the real question here, and the Niners are gambling on that. I wouldn't pay that high. Mike Evans is a great receiver going down in the Hall of Fame for sure, but I just wouldn't pay that high for the injuries he's had, especially last season with his hamstring. So it's always been an issue with him. But I do like the signing for the Niners. It's a good target for Brock Purdy, but yeah, a little high on my end.
Yeah, and let's kind of talk on the Max Crosby situation because obviously a lot has happened with the Max Crosby situation. It was announced that he was going to the Ravens, and then it came out that he failed a physical, and then the Ravens backed out of the trade and signed Trey Hendrickson. And so Max Crosby is back to being available. Now, I'm seeing sources, and neither of us are going to like this, but the Bears seem to be a heavy favor for Max Crosby. I'm seeing the Bears, I'm seeing the Colts. Those are really the two teams I'm seeing.
I actually saw that the Ravens wanted both Crosby and Hendrickson, believe it or not.
That would be a
Um,
scary D line.
they tried to get both. They wanted both. But yeah, when you think as a Packers fan, Lions fan, Vikings fan, you just think it couldn't get any worse. Crosby's off the market. The one thing that happens is he fails physical, and all of a sudden the Ravens are like, nah, we don't want him anymore. We're actually going to go sign Trey Hendrickson. Hendrickson saw the Jalen Phillips contract and was like, hold on, wait a minute. I'm not signing till I get $30 million. That's insane. Dude, really quick on the Jalen Phillips. I don't know what the Panthers are smoking over there, but handing out bags to these players. Last year in the offseason, they were handing out bags to like Morig. I forgot who else, but just crazy money being spent for such a average defense. So you go out
Right.
and get a guy who is almost injury retired, Jalen Phillips. But Trey Hendrickson got his money's worth. Good for him. But yeah, he's on the Ravens, leaving Max Crosby, which looks like the Raiders might keep him actually. So that's still a possibility too. I don't think he's fully out the door. I think that
I think he might sit.
they can
It,
take the
it,
cap hit, but if I'm Max Crosby and like the Raiders made all these moves, it is appealing. Although you are with a rookie quarterback to start all over again, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But if the Bears somehow get Max Crosby, dude, it's gonna be an angry episode for me.
yeah. But make sure to comment down below if your team made any signings in free agency. If you're enjoying this content, make sure you turn on the notification bell below so you don't miss an upload. Now back to the episode. All right, NFC North. We got to talk about it
Yeah, we do.
because there's some good, there's some bad, and then there's what the hell are they doing?
I'm ugly. Oh yeah.
So let's start with the what the hell are they doing with the Minnesota Vikings.
Where do we start, Nick? Where do we start?
Yeah, so they add James Pierre, which we were texting off camera, and I was like, "Who? Who?
He said,
Who'd they
"Who?"
sign?"
Yeah,
And they
Steelers
get rid of
corner.
Josh Naylor.
Which, by the way, I like Josh Naylor. He was behind Addison and Jefferson, of course, as a wide receiver 3. Little speed threat guy, just never really got the opportunity. I did like him as a receiver, but they got rid of him. Hey, not a threat to me anymore. He did cook the Packers a little bit, so no more Jalen Naylor.
Yeah, so I say this because Detroit has been beat by people by the last name of Naylor for quite a bit. We all obviously know Josh Naylor and Bo Naylor in baseball, and then Jalen Naylor in football. And I like Jalen Naylor, Michigan State, coming from Michigan State, and he definitely was that speed threat for Minnesota. And we see the signing of James Pierre being in a depth position, most likely, and they're helping out their defense for sure because there was a lot of question marks going around with this Minnesota defense in terms of free agency and contract negotiations. What's going to happen with that defense that they built so well last year, but weren't really able to do much with it?
Yeah, and we mentioned before too. Looks like Murray Magic might be coming to Minnesota to quarterback there. They need a quarterback at the end of the day. It's just a matter of who. There's Kirk Cousins, but will they bring him back or they bring Kyler Murray, who I think is a little bit better and younger too. It'll be interesting to see if Kyler Murray lands with the Vikings, give JJ McCarthy some competition for the starting role because I don't think he deserves to solidify himself as a starter there at all.
No.
So Justin Jefferson probably has one more season before he loses his mind. And as you said, that defense is now falling apart. Their center retired, Kelly. So, yeah, this team is not the same by any means. A lot of gaps, and they didn't really make any moves. So we're waiting to see what they do at quarterback. And that's about it for the Vikings. We're just unsure of what they're doing.
Yeah, and let's start now with the Chicago Bears. We'll save our teams for last. The Chicago Bears are making moves. 100% making moves. They had Devin Bush and Kobe Bryant, and then they get rid of Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Byard. Now, they got younger depth with the additions. And in my opinion, and you would probably agree with me, Devin Bush and Kobe Bryant are better than Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Byard.
Well, both of those guys, Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker, are safeties, but Devin Bush is filling in for Tremaine Edmonds, who they got rid of as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Devin Bush, so he's an oddball because he was in Pittsburgh, didn't have a great 3 years, 4 years there, went to Cleveland last year. He had a great year, fantastic year, coming off one of his best years. So this is a throw a dart at the board and hopefully it sticks. They got him for 3 years, 30 million. So there's a possibility that he's either going to have a good year or he might fall off. But I do like the signing just because it fills Edmonds. You still got TJ Edwards there. But let me tell you, that freaking Kobe Bryant, not the freaking NBA player, Kobe Bryant
Different
from
Kobe.
the reigning champs, the Seahawks, safety, versatile guy, fast. Just I was heated when they signed him. Great signing for the Chicago Bears. Unfortunately, he's going to be another threat in the Packers side in the deep game. Yeah, the Bears are getting younger. They got younger in the safety position as well.
Yeah, and they also added Lions punt returner Khalif Raymond,
Oh yeah. Yep.
and so that adds to their special teams, and he can also fill that role as a wide receiver as well. He is also a speed threat. Sad to see him go as a Lions fan, but I wish him luck, and sad to say I hope he succeeds in Chicago because he is one of those guys that has a really good attitude and stuck it out. He went from Tennessee to Detroit when Detroit was not good at all and stuck it out. And I wish him luck. But let's go to your Green Bay Packers, where they add Benjamin St. Just, Javon Hargrave, Sky Moore, and they get rid of Quay Walker, Kingsley in I'm
Nigbare.
going to say Mbare, Rashawn Gary, Eldon Jenkins, Nate Hobbs, and Romeo Dobbs. Now,
Yeah.
to say the least, that is a lot of key pieces that you guys are losing. But if you guys didn't already see the last episode, go check that out, where Mike did a deep dive of some of the signings that the Packers had, including Benjamin St. Just. And it seemed like you were pretty excited about this signing.
Oh man, I'll start off with the losses. The losses were really expected. We were expected to release Elton Jenkins, lose Dobbs in free agency, Quay Walker, the Rashawn Gary. No surprise. No surprise really. It was just a matter of Elton Jenkins released at the time. I guess the Packers needed that cap space money, which I'll get into their addition in a second here. But losing a guy like Kingsley and Agbari, I said this last episode, at edge, you lose Gary. I thought they would retain Enigbari on a cheap contract, 1 year, 8 million range, but he goes to the Jets for 1 to 10. And yeah, Benjamin St. Just, a guy who would throw a dart at the board. Hopefully he sticks kind of guy. Now, he's going to be a guy who may not start, but he will be competitively pushing like Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine for a starting role. He's a big guy. He's a 6'3" boundary corner who
Yep.
could potentially play on that outside. And he did have a great season last year, despite not playing that many snaps with the Chargers, but he did have good numbers. And for a Packers cornerback room, they have no depth at all. Why not? Cheap deal, 2 year, 10 million, but they have an option for 1 year, so they could save 5 million. So honestly, I'm taking the signing all day. And yeah, with the additions or losses rather, it was interesting for Elton Jenkins that he signed with the Browns for 2 year, 24. I thought the
Hmm.
Packers might have been able to extend him, but I guess the number was a little bit too high. And the one guy who got released, which was interesting, was Nate Hobbs because cornerback, they signed him a year ago, 4 years, 48 million. He was just a bust. Hey, Packers Twitter also needs to chill out because
Hmm.
releasing Nate Hobbs was the right move after 1 year, but not all guys are going to pan out. You know, Goody made one bad signing in how many years? There's probably a couple more, don't get me wrong, but this one was really notable because it's 4 years, 48 million.
Yeah.
But they're not going to all pan out. So you go and get Benjamin St. Juste for a cheaper contract. So just pump the brakes. Let's chill out. Let's give him some credit.
Yeah, and I will also mention that the fact that you guys got rid of your edge rushers, it gives,
Nick, your camera's going crazy.
I know, but I'm pretty sure it's going to record at full quality. That's what it says.
Okay.
So we'll see. This is really going to be an opportunity for a guy like Lucas Van Ness, who I know you mentioned him in the last episode. He needs to step up for sure, especially with losing these edge rushers that you guys have lost, and it needs to happen this year. If the Packers are going to stay with the moves that they have made, which I doubt they're going to just make those moves and then back away from free agency, but if that's the route that they're going to go with, they need to do that, and he needs to step up.
Absolutely. They also addressed a much needed position, which last episode they didn't do the signing yet, but they got Sky Moore and Javon Hargrave. Shout out the Vikings giving us Hargrave, big defensive tackle guy who can be up front, stop the run, had some good numbers with the Vikings. I'm super pumped. 2 year, $23 million contract. Yeah, I'm super pumped to have him. The Packers needed a defensive tackle. We can finally shut down the Jalen Carter talks because that was never happening. I don't know how that got sparked up. But also Sky Moore, underrated kind of player. He won't do much statistically, but the Packers in that kick returner position just needed a kick returner, man. Last season we had Romeo Dobbs back there, Jaden Reed, random people. Finally get ourselves a kick returner. I'm super pumped for special teams, Packers special teams, which is crazy to say. So Packers, I'm pretty happy with the free agency that the signings that they had with the cap space they had too. So I'm pretty happy, pretty satisfied. I'm interested to see what they do in the draft. So
Yeah, and the final team is the Detroit Lions. Now, to start things off, they needed to address free agency for their window to stay open. Now, am I happy about the moves that they made so far? Eh, it's kind of 50-50 for me. But their additions are Cade Mays. They re-signed Rock Yassin, which he's a depth guy for sure, especially with not knowing the health of Terrion Arnold. And they add Isaiah Pacheco as their second running back after getting rid of David Montgomery in a trade to get Juice Scruggs and a couple of draft picks as well. Now, the players that they got rid of, one of these I'm not too happy about because this is a guy that I said they should re-sign. He's good depth for the defensive line. That is Roy Lopez. Now, Roy Lopez, we got him from Arizona last year, so last offseason. He was a good depth piece for us for sure. and he re-signs with Arizona. Now, Alex Anzalone, I kind of figured that was going to happen because of the cap space and the fact that Jack Campbell was essentially making the play calls on defense this past year. Meek Roberson definitely surprises me because he is a guy that showed what Detroit football is about. Is that toughness, that grit. He was the shortest guy on the field going up against the team's number one guy. He was going up against Justin Jefferson. He was going up against Jamar Chase. He was going up against these teams' number one guy, and he was able to hold his own. Now, they also released two offensive linemen, that being Taylor Decker and Graham Glasgow. I saw Graham Glasgow happening for sure because you have the fact that he was one of the worst centers in the league last year in terms of pass protection and run protection. He was within the 20s. And Taylor Decker surprised me. They wanted to restructure his contract and he didn't want to, so they released him. So the Lions are definitely going to have to address the offensive line because Cade Mays is a decent center. He's definitely not the top. And Juice Scruggs can maybe compete for a starting role, but we'll have to see how they do. And then obviously that tackle position, I do see potentially Penei Sewell moving to the left side. He's used to it. He played in college. So we'll have to see. And I feel comfortable with Penei Sewell protecting the blind side of Jared Goff. And then also the Lions released Kyle Allen, their second quarterback, and added their new second quarterback, who's also already had a stint on the Lions, that being Teddy Bridgewater. Now, JMO is definitely happy about this because Teddy Bridgewater was able to kind of help teach Jameson Williams to be able to be mature. Now, the key takeaway of the Lions is they do have some good draft picks. They have, I believe, 13 draft picks going into this year. They also got a comp pick in the 5th round with Alex Anzalone signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we'll have to see what happens in the draft and if they're able to potentially make a big move in free agency, which I am seeing once Max Crosby became available again, they put a huge offer in for him. So we'll see if that pans out and what the Lions do and each one of these teams do in terms of free agency.
Yeah, I like the Isaiah Pacheco a lot. I like
Mm,
he's almost like David Montgomery. It was a great signing by the Lions. I'm assuming for cheap. I said it last
yeah.
episode, or in the short I made, but I don't know if the numbers came out for it yet. But yeah, great replacement for David Montgomery if he can stay healthy. You know, the Lions lost a lot. I think they'll be a-okay. We'll have to see. We will have to see.
Yeah, and they also
And really,
restructured Goff and they also, I believe the new nickname is coming out for the running back duo, and right now it seems to be Sonic and Shadow is what the nickname is going to be.
really quick, just want to break some news that it is officially official that former Cardinals QB Kyler Murray will visit the Vikings on Thursday. So the day this episode goes out, according to Adam Schefter, and the belief across the league is that the Vikings are in fact Murray's landing spot.
Wow. Okay. But yeah, we had two awesome episodes this week. If you haven't watched the initial reaction to free agency, make sure to go check that out. It was uploaded on Tuesday. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the Gridiron Podcast to become part of the conversation. Also, follow us on social media and all of our platforms, that being Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. And we appreciate you guys listening. And as always, see you guys next week.